Hello, it is Matt, and welcome back to me doing this thing. The Squire Mustang that we're giving away. Now, I missed doing an episode last week. In all honesty, I was over-caffeinated, and it was not a good time. We also had a band in practicing, and it was quite loud. I did not expect that. Anyway, enough with excuses. Actually, I just had heaps of client work to do. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, it's probably one of you people watching. But in reality, it's the all hours people. Richard. Check them out. Anyway, they're going to be recording some stuff soon, so they've dropped off something like 7,000 guitars for me to fix, which is great. Not complaining. Moving on. So, today, setups. And I've got my stupid little mobile setup. Not sure how that's going to go, but it looked all right last time, hopefully. Now, setup. So, we've put the guitar back together, we've put strings on it, and we've tuned it up. And that's about all I've done, okay? So what I'm going to do first, and what you need to do first, every time, is retune the guitar. And now it's time for proper setup. It's important to, when you do your tuning, and especially when you do your intonation and all that sort of stuff, when you're doing it for real, do it this way. Do it in playing position, because you need gravity kind of affects your guitar, believe it or not. So you want to make sure at all stages of setup, like all of them, that your instrument's at pitch or close enough. So that's good. Obviously, it won't sound in tune because we haven't done the intonation, we haven't done the nut yet, but we're back in tune, and I checked that. It was slightly out of tune from last week or the week before. Anyway, hopefully you can hear me. Now, what do I do? Setup is always, apart from tuning it, and these are the strings I want to use, and these is the tension I want to use. This is the tuning. So the next thing to check is your truss rod. I'm going to turn on this little video thing, and we'll assume that that's working. Now, so the tools I need. Oh, maybe I'll go through the tools I need. So I will need the truss rod tool, and I believe that'll be a 4 or 5 millimeter one. It's not 5. It's 4 mil. Okay, so I need the tool for your truss rod. Whatever guitar you've got, let's assume that it's one with a truss rod, and you've got to get the tool for that. And I like to use a capo of any quality. Doesn't actually need to be a good one. This one is terrible. I like to use a string gauge. Now, it's important that you buy a good one. I'll go through that later. And you'll need a screwdriver to do your intonation of the right size. So I'm going to put that there. And for the string heights, I know I need, this is a metric bridge, so I'll need a 1.5 mil Allen key. And that's it. You see these weird setup kits with all these weird little things. That's not setup. That's fixing stuff or addressing issues. We're going to go through the setup part. And this is the part where the dodgy shops charge you $100 to do these little adjustments. And it's a rort because they're not doing any of the other stuff that makes your guitar good. Like smoothing things and making sure the nut's right. And, they'll just do these things and go, here's your setup. And they haven't cleaned it. They haven't polished anything. They haven't checked the electronics. And that's a rort. So this is the stuff that you can do apart from the nut thing. But we'll get that. So step 1, tuning. Step 2, let's check the truss rod. And I like to check the truss rod in one way. I like to hold it down on the first fret, like on the first fret, the lowest string, and then hold it where it meets the body. So then your string is a straight edge, and you can sort of judge, based on the light, whether there's enough space. So you want a tiny bit of wiggle room, somewhere around the 7, 8, 9-ish. It does vary on guitars, but let's just go with that. You want a little bit of a gap, okay? And I'm not seeing enough of a gap. So what that means is I've got to relax the truss rod, and the string tension will take over and bend the neck up, and then we'll have enough relief in the thing. So I don't particularly like this, so I'm going to loosen the truss rod that much. What was that? 1/8 of a turn. And then I'm going to look, and I'm going to see, and I'm going to go, actually, that's right. That's it. Not very scary, and also it is good practice if you don't know where your guitar's at, to always loosen it first. Just wherever you are, whatever you're doing, even if you need to tighten it, just loosen it a bit. Make sure it's moving. You don't want to just tighten things. You can't damage anything loosening it. You can damage a lot of stuff tightening. So chill out on that. Now, if it was the other way around, and this neck was actually like really curvy, and I wanted to straighten it out, then I would tighten the truss rod this way. But it's not. So moving on. Ideally, you would let that chill for a bit, and then you would go on and check. Are we recording? I think we're recording. Oh, well. If we're not, too bad. You'll just have to visualize it. Now, what I like to do now is the heights. And it's not like what I prefer. It's how it is. Okay, and I do that. I do my bridge first. Okay, and there's a bit of debate among the community about whether you do your nut height or your string height first. I do them and then switch. So I put a capo on the first fret to sort of take the nut out of the equation. So if this was a ideally set up guitar, or it had a 0 fret, it wouldn't actually be much different than a capo on the first fret. So then I put it back in playing position, always in playing position. And I get my little ruler thing. And you've got to get these from a reputable source. And then you've got to check with another reputable source that the increments on these things are what they say they are. Because I went and bought, I think it was like 50 heaps from eBay, because I was going to just give them to customers. And they were all wrong, because they just sort of stamp printed them, and none of the actual things were what they said they were. So get a good one. This one's from Sumac. It's expensive, but I bought it once 20 years ago or something stupid. So it's worth buying. So I go on the 12th fret, and you can look up the specs for your particular guitar, and then you can memorize what you particularly like. So because it's a capo on there, I usually go a little bit under what I normally would. And I kind of like, essentially I like the bass E at 1.75 millimeters high, and I like the treble E at 1.25. That's just me. So I go through just the E's, and I make sure that they're at that. Okay. That's it. That's all I do. Now, what you want to make sure is that your strings, because we've just set the E's, right? There's 4 more strings. So you go through, and you want to make sure that ideally, now I've got these sets of radius gauges somewhere. Here they are. These things. And you can buy these things, and the idea is you go through and you find your fretboard radius, and this will be 9.5, I think. So it's got the curve of the fretboard on it, and ideally you would make sure you sneak it under the strings. You make sure that's 9.5, which it is, and then see how it's got the radius copied on the top. Then you can use that to duplicate the fretboard radius with the bottom of the string radius. And let's just do that just quickly. I use the shadow of the string on it to sort of see where we're at, and if I like it. But this isn't a good trick, I feel. I feel like this is just a thing that they sold to get you in the ballpark, but it's not actually very good from a playability perspective, I think. Feel free to disagree. So when I'm doing this, I feel like I'm raising these strings up too high in the middle. So that's about right, according to these things. And then when I check it, actually, that's all right. But I kind of like to ballpark it. I feel like that could come down a bit. Because the reality is when you do it perfectly, and I've done an episode on this, maybe just watch that. When you do it according to the rulers and the measures too much, it doesn't always feel great. So sometimes you have to go through these things a couple of times to sort of work out where you are. I personally like it a bit flatter than the radius if I can get away with it, just for the sake of how it feels. But everybody's different. So, and this is ideally, we're talking about your guitar, not this guitar. But I'm talking about this guitar right now. Anyway, so now we've sort of set that roughly. And then I'm going to have to address the nut. And hopefully you can see the nut. You see that nut? Probably not. Oh, well, I'll move it forward a bit. So how we see if the nut is the right height is I have this lamp here, and everyone's like, it's in the way. It's here for a reason. I use it so I can see the light between the string and the first fret. So the bottom of the string and the top of the first fret. I want that distance to be almost nothing as a measurement. There's measurements. There's little tools. I've got all the little tools. They're stupid. People use feeler gauges. That's stupid. I'll tell you why that's stupid. You can't put a feeler gauge under something without raising it up. And if you can, then you can't tell if it's... Don't use them. They're for cars and stuff, not guitars. So I just use the light. So I'm going to go through with my smallest nut file, and I can see that the high E is too tall. So I'm going to use my nut file. I'm going to angle it back towards the headstock a little bit. I'm going to take a tiny bit of meat off, and I'm going to check. And remember, this is up to pitch. Don't do this with loose strings. And don't do it before you check the truss rods right, or you ruin your nut. So for the sake of this exercise and for not watching me do this, because I'm going to make the nut again, this is how I would be doing it. But we're not going to go through the whole thing. So I'm just going to do the high E little bit. This nut is too gummy and it has to go, but just for the sake of it. Okay, so that slot is just enough to clear the fret, because the higher the fret is away, the worse your intonation is going to be down that end. So now let's pretend, for the sake of my camera's battery, that I've done all of these. Now I'll actually go back and I'll make sure we're in tune again. Because I've moved the truss rod and I've moved the saddles. So we put it back to tune. Oop. And let's assume that all of these are done. Now I would go back and I would check the heights again. And and adjust them at the bridge. So that's maybe a little bit high. So I'm going to adjust it down again. And then I'll go through all of them. And for heights and stuff, I like to make sure I can do a full bend where I want to do a full bend. I'm going to actually play every fret. I'm going to go through and maybe I'll play some music on it. Music. Try some things. I'm going to think about how the player said they play. Do you hit it real hard? Then we have to set it up a particular way. Do you want to do heaps of shredding stuff, which I can't do very well? Then we can set it lower. If you play lots of really quick metal stuff where the note doesn't exist for long, then you don't need it to ring out, and you can probably get it closer. And there's all these little things, nuances that you build in to the setup for the person, and that's part of the job. But do it how you want. Use the rulers, do the stuff, and check. But essentially, it is your instrument. So if you like it insanely high, then you're just going to have to deal with some of the problems that come with that, like intonation, which is what I'll move on to now. So we've set our truss rod, we've set the bridge and the nut, and then we've gone back and checked the bridge. I kind of like to do those steps like that. Now it comes to doing the intonation. Okay, and once again, not to waste your lives, I'll just do one string. Okay, and now I feel like maybe that's too high. That's all right. For the sake of it, it's a matter of doing your 12th fret. So I do the harmonic of the 12th fret. If you don't know what a harmonic is, look it up. So I set that to whatever it is. In this case, it's E. And then I want to make sure that the 12th fret is also exactly E. And I can see here that it's actually flat. So my fretted note is flatter. And notice I'm doing that in playing position again. And because it's flatter, sorry for bumping the camera again, because it's flatter, I have to move the saddle towards the nut. Okay, so I'll just do that a little bit. And then I'm going to recheck. I'm going to look at it and go, still a bit flat, still a bit flat. And if you've got a decent enough tuner, and I know I harp on about this a fair bit, but if you go to somebody and they're fixing guitars for you, and they've got a bloody pedal as their tuner, and don't get me wrong, I've got some great pedal tuners. I've got 3 Peterson ones. They're great. But they are not really a replacement for a proper strobe, in my opinion. So just sort of get the best tuner you can, okay? And if it's your job, take that seriously, please. Don't be like, it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, then none of this matters, okay? So now I can sort of check with my tuner that the E is the same as the E. And it is important to... I think we're out of battery. Anyway, let me check this. Excuse me. Out of storage. Anyway, that's enough of that. So, the main things I'm saying here is when you're doing your setup and you're doing your measurement checks, do it in playing position. Now, when you do your intonation, do it in playing position. Use a very good tuner. And while you're doing it, think about how you play. So, do you squeeze hard? If you squeeze hard, that's a problem, and you should probably address that. But that's also how you play. So when you do the intonation, don't press really lightly. Press exactly how you play. So if you play super lightly, intonate super lightly. If you play super hard, you probably shouldn't, but intonate like that. and then your results will be better. And now that is the final step of the setup. I mean, there's more work to do, but that is the setup. Okay. If you decide now, actually, I need a bit more relief in my neck, because I miscalculated how I play and it's a bit buzzy, so I want a bit more relief, then you have to start again. Start again at the top and go, okay, so now I've got to redo my heights because you just changed the geometry of the guitar with the neck. Okay. Likewise, if you're like, oh, actually the G string nut slot isn't quite right, or I want this a bit higher or lower, then you have to still do the intonation again. So wherever you restart from, you have to do the rest. You can't just go back in isolation, do some little work to the nut, and then be like, yep, I'm good. Because that's not how it works. Okay. Guitars need to be done in that order. And that's it. Okay. And I will have a little chat about tools. Okay. And you may have noticed I have many tools. And some of them are very important for very particular jobs. And most of them are this: a good screwdriver or two in every size, good Allen keys. Cheap Allen keys aren't made with very good tolerances, and when they say that they're 2 millimeters, they are not. So just buy the good ones. The good ones, I don't know what a set of these ones was, $40 or something. They've lasted me decades. Just buy the right ones and don't lose them. As for like you people at home, and you're like, oh, on eBay looking at all those setup things, they're all pretty crap. Okay. The nut files they come with are pretty crap. They'll get you through one job, but they won't. If you buy one of these, this is a notched straight edge. This is not for setups. Okay. People are like, oh, well, how can you tell where your fretboard is? Setups aren't about your fretboard. Okay. Setups are about the frets and the strings and relationship between those things. If you're pulling out one of these, it's because you have to do fret leveling or something else. And this one was made by my good friend that I think I've never met, Justin Hermes. He made this for me for no reason. And I appreciate it greatly. If you want to check out what he does, he makes awesome aluminium scratch plates and apparently notched straight edges. So as an example, this is a 24-inch one and this is a 24-inch thing. So I can put this on the frets or on the fretboard without touching the frets. So I can read if the fretboard itself is curved, because we would have a bit of a problem if the fretboard radius did not match the top of the string, top of the fret radius, if you get what I mean. So it's a different reason. Don't buy this as some sort of weird setup tool. Buy it if you want to get into something more serious. But lots of those kits come with lots of fret leveling things. One of these things is handy. It's a fret rocker. Again, that is not really part of the setup. That is a part of fixing the frets. Crowning files, not part of a setup. Part of crowning files. Crowning frets. I've gone mad. Hopefully you understand what I mean. You need your truss rod tool, whatever that is. And they're all quite different. Okay. I can see, I don't know, 15 different ones right here on my bench. You probably need one or two for your guitars. I don't know if you want to get fret files. Just talk to your friendly local luthier, and they can help you out with that sort of stuff. But as far as setups go, it's really basic. And when people charge you for a setup and this is all they do, they are a scammer, because there's a lot more to it. As you may have guessed by my rambling, I think that's enough rambling for today. I've got more guitars to finish. Thanks, Richard. Again, yeah, check it out. Check out that band. Check out Justin's stuff. Herard. I don't know how you say that. Yeah, anyway. I'd say good chat, but I think this one was a bit crazy. And it's because I'm tired, and that's my cat's fault. So that's the end. Now, next episode, I'm gonna do a nut. Actually, I'm not gonna do it in front of you. I might just do it, and then put some video up, and we can chat about it, about how I do it, and then maybe we can have some sort of discourse about how I should give this thing away, or to whom I should give it away to. I would like it to go to a deserving person, and not some person that has 58 guitars already. So if we can work out how to do that, maybe we can have a chat or a live stream or something, which sounds horrendous, actually, now I think about it. I retract that statement. All right, that's it.